Good afternoon to all of you. I hope I am audible to you. Welcome to Sunya IAS. As you know that we are having the Anthropology Foundation batch for offline and online students, and this is going to be in the live mode. And in this particular series we are doing the paper 2, the unit 5.1. We are already done with this part, the impact of the globalization on the Indian villages. All the videos are available, so you can watch them. And still if you are having any doubt, so you can connect back with me. There is one Google form attached in the description box. You can fill it and you can connect with me. Now, in today's class, we are going to start with this part, the agrarian relations in Indian villages. I have told you about the Indian villages in the first class itself. If you missed that class, you can watch it. There are, like in the Shunya IAS YouTube official channel, there is so many videos of anthropology. There you can find out the paper 2, lecture 1 related to the Indian villages. There I have told you what was the scenario of the Indian villages, and now what is the scenario of the Indian villages. So we can compare and we can basically get the basic idea that how the Indian villages they have transformed over years. Fine. In today's class, what we are going to do will trying to understand the agrarian relation. For that, I am going to simplify it. See, again I have told you that UPSC they had given us the syllabus in this way. The best way to do it, to segregate into the different part into small parts and then read between the line, so that if UPSC or so that if there is something in the news we can easily relate with it and then we can deal it. Okay, fine. So now let's start with this part, agrarian relation. If I have to explain the agrarian relation, if you have to explain the agrarian relation, means we know 60 to 70% of the Indian population they are directly and indirectly dependent upon the agriculture itself. The contribution of agriculture in GDP is around 19 to 20%. Although it was there in the 2013 20%, after the 2013 it was continuously reducing, and now in the 2023 or 4 somewhere we finally achieved it 20% again after a decade. Fine. Now the agrarian relation, if we have to understand, it is basically can be divided into three parts. So the first part is the pre-British time period. So before the British era, what was the scenario of the agriculture? Then there is second part, the British time period, and then there is finally the third part, that is the post-independence. Now, do not expect that there is going to be any reform before independence, because before independence, the British, like before British, the Mughal administration or the other rulers, I won't say ruler but the invaders, so all other invaders they were not highly interested in the improvement of the agriculture sector. They just want maximum of the taxes or revenue from the agriculture, and the same scenario was there during the British era. There was, we can expect some sort of reform only during the post independence time period. Fine. So let's do that. First is going to be pre British era, so we are marking the British time period as the benchmark. See, I will dedicate some sort of beneficial steps out of the British time period, because only then we realize that British they were the one who provided us the path, and they basically stimulated some sense of independence or self respect, or some sense when you will be fighting for your rights. And that's why this is the result that we are going to see the four step land reform. Okay, so keep this thing in your mind. So this is the British time period, and the last one is post independence. Okay, fine. Now in the pre British time period there was not so much of the things to be done in case of agriculture. But during that time period, there was some conditions of the agriculture, like the farming sector, and that's what I'm going to say. So in the pre-British time period, the land was concentrated in the hands of few. So what we are going to write down, the land was concentrated in the hands of few. And who were these few? These few, they were the, like, basically you can say that someone who's related to the ruler, those who were basically the rulers, so from their family, or it may be the businessman, or it may be the money lender, someone who was holding the power, or someone who was related to the court. So those people, they were having the majority of the land under their concentration. Second, during that time period, we were also having some terms like the landless laborer. Like, there is the relationship of leasing out of the land, and that's how there is one owner, and the owner was not cultivating the land. Therefore the tenant is here, who's leasing, who's basically taking that land out of lease, and then doing the agriculture or farming. So during that time period, the nature was like that. Leasing out the land was very common. Was common. Next thing that we can find out, during this time period, there was exploitation for sure. If someone who's holding the land in terms of ownership and not cultivating it, they don't know the real situation, and they just need more and more profit, or more revenue out of that land. Therefore they tend to exploit the tenant. And that's why during that time period, one of the easiest as well as one of implicit thing that we can understand is, during that time period there was tenant exploitation. Okay, so there was tenant exploitation. Next thing during that time period was that, whose owner, who's going to hold the land, how the money lender things will go on, how the interest would be charged, how we are going to figure it out, that what should be the ideal rent for this, like when you someone is leasing out the land, then what should be the ideal rent. So there was no such prescribed and standardized measures. So therefore during that time period, in the pre-British time period, in the pre-British era, there was a kind of time period when the land records, they were in a very bad situation, like they were in a very bad form. So here we can write down, land records were in a bad situation. Next thing that we can find out here, that land, it was completely fragmented. Means, quite possible the land is not consolidated, it was fragmented. So therefore this is one of the kind of feature we can say, during that time period land was fragmented. Fine, so these were the kind of thing during the pre-British time period. I hope you can understand it well. Fine. Now, the next thing that we can find out is the agrarian relationship during the British time period. British time period was something where we cannot expect, again I'm repeating, we cannot expect that during this time period the land, or there was some sort of measures which were here for the improvement, not at all. During the British time period, all the steps, all the kind of structure was there, so that they can extract as much revenue as they can. uh, and land revenue was the prime source of income for them. So therefore the money lender, the mediators, the zamindar, in like different like rayotwars, all these people, they were here just to extract as much revenue as they can. If there is drought like condition, if there is famine, if there is flood, nothing affecting them. They just want as much as revenue as they can, extract from the farmers, from the landless laborer, or from the tenant. Fine. So for that, basically they were having a three system that is basically called as the land revenue system. Okay, so if you can tell me the land revenue system, there were three system. Hanji, can you tell me the three land revenue system? Hanji, can you tell me the three land revenue system? Okay, so the three land revenue system, here I'm just writing the name. I'm going to explain them further on the next slide. Fine. So the first one we can find out here is the permanent land settlement system. British time period, it was only to extract revenue. Therefore, all the kind of steps that I'm going to prepare here, they are only to extract as much income as they can. Fine. So the first one is the permanent land settlement system. Second is the Rayotwari land settlement system. And the third one is Mahalwari land settlement system or land revenue system. Okay, so taking it towards the next slide, let's explain about it, the British time period. British time period. Okay, so when the British East India Company, they gained control after the Battle of Plassey. Okay, this is my question to you. Tell me when the Battle of Plassey it happened. See, Battle of Plassey, we can say this was the time period when the British control officially like they started gaining the control over the Indian area. So that was, Hanji, can you tell me? See, that was the time period of 1757. Then, after the Battle of Buxar, the 1764, they finally gained control. So, when the Britishers they gained control, they started having the expectation to have a stable revenue. And when they were searching of so many different areas where they can have the stable revenue, they finally settled down at the agriculture. I know, see, agriculture, it was not stable at all, but they were not getting any such effect from the famine, from the flood like situation. Nothing is affecting them. So, therefore, what they did, they basically, when they were extracting about it, they basically find out that having the agriculture, their prime focus, would help them to send as much wealth as they can to the Britain. Another thing, they want the revenue so that they can maintain their army. See, to like, even if they are not giving any salary to them, and even if they giving them meager salary, still they want the army to be there for in terms of their food, in terms of their weapon, in terms of their dresses, in terms of system that they are maintaining. For that, they requires this steady income. Another thing, they want more and more profit. So there were three reasons they want a stable revenue, and for that they basically find out agriculture as the appropriate sector for the same. So britishers requires steady income. For what? First one, to maintain army. Second one, to send wealth to Britain. And the third one, for to expand profit. See, they want more and more profit so that they can rule the whole world. They were also doing expansion in terms of their autonomy towards the Africa, towards the South Asia, towards the East Asia. So for that also they require. So for this, what they did, land revenue become the main source of income for them. And then because of this, it leads towards the new agrarian system. So what happened actually? So what happened actually? Land revenue became their source of income. Land revenue, source of income. Okay, so land revenue basically become their source of income. So basically what they did is, what they did is it led to the new agrarian system, and their agrarian system, it was related to the three tier system. So the first tier system, it was the permanent land settlement. The second one is the rayotwari, and the third one is the mahalwari. So now let's try to find out. See, this is something that you need to add on while writing the answers, because these types of diagrams, they like these are the self explanatory diagrams. You don't need to explain it and again dedicate a para for it. The diagram itself is explaining the things, and then you can straight away start with your next part. So now let's have the next part, that is the land revenue system. Land revenue settlement system. So primarily there are three, and we are going to do all these three in a comparative table format. So what is the benefit of doing it in a comparative table format? See, comparative table format, it helps us to remember the related things at once, and this is something that I wanted to tell you, so that in future whenever you are doing it, so you can uh, you can remember it. You will be having this picture in your mind and you can remember it in a fast manner. Okay, so the first one, permanent settlement. Next one is the rayotwari. and the next one is the Mahalwari. Okay, so the permanent settlement system, it was basically introduced in the year 1793, and this system, it was basically introduced by the Lord Cornwallis. So the Lord Cornwallis, he really wanted to have a fixed land settlement system where it like it was not related to the fact that the farmers, they were having some crops or they were harvesting something or not. They had basically specified that this is the rent, not rent, but they have to specify the rent, something extra. But this was something like, because they are allowing them to do the agriculture, due to because of this permission, they required something extra. And for that they specified that one of the 11th part, in terms of like, out of the 111th part they are specifying, but that 11th part was more than 100 part, because in actual sense this farmer, they were not getting the 100% production. And out of that 100% production, like for example, they specify like, if this is the area of the land, they, out of like, they consider all other condition constant, and they said that from this land you can get 100 kg quantity, and out of this 100 kg quantity you have to give us 11th part. Okay, now let us suppose, due to the famine, because during that time period there was no fertilizer, there was no proper irrigation, there was so many other challenges. And out of these challenges, let us suppose the person is only able to get 31 kg, still they will get 11 kg. If the person is getting 10 kg production total, still they will ask them to give them 11th part. I mean that, not 11th part, but that 11 kg. So that's what you can understand, that irrespective of farmer is getting any sort of production, their share or their revenue is fixed. Even if the prices are high, even if the prices are low, even if their production is more, even if their production is less, they fixed their part. And this is something the farmers have, like the farmers, they have to submit. Okay, so during this time period, it was so difficult for the farmers to survive this fixed land settlement system, and this was extremely exploitative. So this system, it was introduced by the Lord Cornwallis. Okay, so this was given by the Lord Cornwallis. This land settlement system, it was basically applied in the BBO, that is Bengal, Bihar, and the parts of Odisha. So you can remember it, BBO, Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. Fine. Now, next part is, during this time period, the peasants, like this permanent settlement system, also called as zamindari system, therefore the peasants means those who are cultivating, they are being considered as tenant, and the zamindar was holding the ownership of the land. So therefore, peasants who's cultivating was the tenant, and owner, zamindar, was the owner. Okay, so that's what you can understand. Next thing, it was basically the zamindari system. Like this zamindar, he was being specified as the owner of the land, and their ownership was hereditary based. Means if one person is zamindar, out of nothing, their son will also hold the complete ownership and the zamindari right, or the right of extracting the revenue out of that land. So therefore, in the next part, that zamindari system or the ownership was hereditary. It was basically hereditary. Now, the peasant, because of this, they were not having any ownership right. And in the Bengal, many of the zamindar, they only focused on extracting as much revenue as they can. They were not focusing on improving the condition of the land or doing any effort so that more and more production can be achieved. They were only caring about, like, when the crop failed, peasants still they have to pay taxes, so they were not concerned about whether they are getting the crops out of the land or not. They are only concerned, like they were only concerned about the taxes. So because of this situation that basically happened, so famine, like in the 1770 there was a great famine in the Bengal. After this zamindari system, that Bengal, the Great Bengal famine like things, they happened usually because there was no such improvement on the quality of the land. So therefore, in this part, what we can basically write down, that there was a kind of fixed permanent system, like that's why the name is given permanent. So it was fixed in terms of nature. And how much fixed? So 10 to the 11th part to Britishers, and 1/11th part to the zamindar. So here Britishers they earn a lot, and the zamindar they also learned a lot. Okay, fine. So next thing that we can basically see or find out here is the Rayotwari system. So the Rayotwari system, it was introduced in the early 19th century, and it was a time period of 1820 when they finally introduced it. So the time period was 1820. So this Rayotwari system, it was introduced by the Thomas Munro and Reed. Munro and Reed. Okay. So this settlement system, it was mostly it was introduced in the Madras, in the Bombay, and in the Assam. So the time period during 1820 when this introduced, during that time period in those area the condition was not that much fragile as it was here in the Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. So it was basically introduced in the Assam, in the Bombay, and Madras. Okay. So, what was this Rayotwari system? See, Rayotwari system, it was basically a kind of settlement when the Britishers they were eliminating the mediator. Here, what is actually happening? Let us suppose here the Britishers and here the farmer. So between them there is one more person, and he is basically specified as the mediator, zamindar. So the zamindar, farmers they are giving to the zamindar, and this is the Britishers. Okay, these are the Britishers. So the farmers they are giving the amount to the zamindar, and zamindar then submitting it with the Britishers. So there is this mediator. But in the Rayotwari system, what actually happened is, here the the group of farmer, they are called as the Rayot, and they themselves basically submitted the land revenue to the Britishers. Then you would say that it means it's a less exploitative. Yes, comparative to the permanent settlement system, it was less exploitative, but it was also exploitative, as they are asking the farmer to pay something. I mean, farmer they were already in the dearth of poverty, still they are asking them to pay something, but it was not that much as it was there in the zamindari system. So therefore in the rayotwari system, peasants, they were recognized as the owner of the land, and now it is the responsibility of the group of peasants to submit the revenue to the britishers. So therefore here settlement made directly with the peasants, especially in the Assam. And because of this system, it was not completely fixed. The system was revised periodically. So therefore we can say it was flexible system. Fine. So let's write down. So peasants, they are the owner of the land. Now, in this system, the kind of zamindari was no, like there is no mediator and there is no hereditary based thing. Peasants who's cultivating, they are the owner, and the kind of property, it should be transferred to their child, and that should be hereditary based. Okay, so it's not kind of a right; it is their property. So here we can basically said that no zamindar and no mediator. Okay, next it is flexible, like it is revised periodically. So we can say it is flexible in nature. Okay, and the next thing that we can basically write down here is here the amount which that is not completely fixed. So no fixed amount, fixed revenue. So here the Rayot war, they are the owner, therefore they were focusing on improving the quality of the land, and that's what they are actually doing. Okay, fine. So the next part is basically the Mahalwadi. So the Mahalwadi system, it was introduced during the time period of 1822, and during this time period, so in the Mahalwadi system, basically during that time period, the Rayotwari, basically they are the owner or they are the peasant. Here there is a mediator. So Mahalwadi system, it was midway in between the peasant and the mediator. So therefore what they said is they specified that this village is a mahal, and now they fixed a revenue for this mahal. Now all the farmer in that area, they will collect their taxes combinedly and will try to reach to that dedicated amount which is given to this mahal, to this area, and then they will hand over this to the britishers. Fine. So what actually happening here is, let us suppose these are the britishers. Okay, and this is basically the village. In this village there are so many farmer. Okay, so britishers are saying that you have to give me, let us suppose 7,000 kg. This is, let us suppose the britishers, they are asking them to pay. So this would be specified as one mahal, mahalwadi system. Now combinedly they have to collect 7,000 and need to transfer it to the britishers. Now britishers, they are not having any sort of problem if only one single person is giving this 7,000, or two-person giving, or all the farmer are giving. The britishers, they just want 7,000 from this particular mahal. Now mahal is a group of the farmers, and combinedly they are dedicating some amount in terms of a revenue to the britishers. This was the mahalwadi system. So here, if in some areas the big farmers, they are supportive, then in this case the thing was smooth. But when they were not supportive, therefore they were exploitative, and they were doing some kind of like they were clever also, so they were misinterpreting the thing, and that's how the small farmers, they were basically affected. So Mahalwadi system, we can say a midway between the zamindari and the rayotwari. So sometimes big farmers, they act like a zamindar, and they were not letting the small farmer know about the prescribed limit, and they were just asking them to submit that much. Fine. So this was the kind of negative thing that you can understand was happening during the Mahalwadi system. Okay, now let's write this Mahalwadi system. So it was basically during the time period of 1822. Write down the 1822. So it was going to be in the leftover areas. So the leftover areas that we can basically find out here is the northwest province, the Punjab, and the central India. This system, Mahalwadi system, it was basically specified by the Holt Mackenzie, but it was given during the time period of William Bentinck. So that's how you can relate. I'm going to write down here the name of the Holt Mackenzie. Okay, so it was in the area of the Punjab Central Province, Punjab and the Central Province. So here they consider one village community as a mahal, and mahal is mahal have to submit the prescribed amount. So what we are going to write down here is village communities prescribed as mahal. Okay, and mahal has to submit a fixed proportion as revenue. Okay, they have to submit it revenue. So what would you say, it's a fixed or a flexible? See, it's a fixed as well as flexible. So fixed and flexible. So, is there any improvement in the condition of the land? See, there the land condition, it was somehow between the village community and the government. So, if again I am saying the village community, if they are supportive, then there would be improvement. If not, then there is no such chance. So, depends upon the improvement in the land depends upon improvement in the land depends upon the village community. Okay, so this is what we can basically have related to the land revenue settlement system, and this was during the time period of the British era. Okay, so this is what you can do. And you done with this? Okay, so you can take the screenshot out of it and then you can remember it. This was the time period of the British. Now, as we are done with these land settlement system, I have already told you, like before this also, we are basically done with the British time period and the things that they were doing. Yeah. So the things that they were doing, like the land revenue system, we are already done with this part. Now next what we are going to do is we will try to figure it out what was the impact of these land revenue system on the farmer or on the agriculture sector. See, now you know one thing, that even if there is a big farmer, Indian government, they are not charging any tax. Agriculture income is tax free. So what was that thing that provided the roadmap to have to take such big decisions, that even now the big farmers, they are also exempted? Fine. So now let's try to find out what was the impact. Impact of British policies on land, policies on agriculture. Okay, fine. So the first one was the shift in the land ownership. Let's make it more appealing. Shift in the land ownership. Shift in the land ownership means traditional system they replaced by the colonial ownership structure. That was one of the shift that we can find out. Second thing that, and that was unavoidable, there was some sort of exploitation, and the exploitation of whom? Of the peasants, of the tenant. Okay, so exploitation of peasants or tenants. Okay, next thing that we can see is commercialization of agriculture. Next thing that we were able to see was that shift, there was a toward the crops, like there was in like Britishers, they were exploiting the farmers to cultivate the cash crops like indigo. And they were that's why this was the reason that there was a time period when the farmers, they were doing the farming, but still they do not have anything to eat. Fine. So there was one novel of the Premchandji, where Neil Darpan. So in that in that particular novel, Premchandji, he mentioned a very emotional event through a story, where he mentioned that there is one husband and wife, and they were extremely hungry, and they were having their son in front of them dying out of hunger. And the hungerness, it was so extreme that that couple, they were thinking that after the death of their child, the child is dying in front of them out of hunger. They were just thinking that after the death of the child, they will eat it. So that's what you can understand, the extremeness of the hunger, and how beautifully he basically showed it, that out of emotion, when the person, they were not having anything to eat, they were even as a second thought thinking it, that they will eat the flesh of their child itself. So that's what you can understand, and that's only and only because of the Britishers and their policies of cultivating the cash crops. So commercialization of agriculture. Okay, so the next part was the rural poverty and the indebtedness. So the rural poverty and the indebtedness, it was also one of the reason. Why? Because there is a circle. The the farmers, they were being pressurized to give rent, When the farmers they were giving the rent, they were not able to save something, even they were not having anything to spend itself. So when they were having this situation, because of this poverty again and again coming over them, and they were again in the circle of the indebtedness, so out of it, it result in terms of rural poverty and indebtedness. Okay, so these four, as at a large scale, you can understand in terms of the impact of these settlement systems. So what we can say, we can basically said that peasant exploitation, the inequality, the long-term agrarian distress, they led to the agriculture sector as the most vulnerable section, and it led to the situation like, have you wondered, when I was framing the britishers, the farmer, I was giving them a sad expression. Why? Because the condition before the independence was like that. See, again I would say after independence also there was such type of cases, but scenario has changed a lot. In some of the areas like Maharashtra, farmer condition again it is very distressing. In some of the areas of the like you can understand of the central India, the condition again very distressing. But the farmer of the Punjab, the farmer of the Haryana, and the farmer of the South India, they are doing extremely good. Even now in the Maharashtra itself, the farmers who are cultivating the fruits instead of having the cotton or the sugar cane, they are also earning good. So there is a kind of shift. Again, there is commercialization of agriculture, but there is a balanced commercialization of agriculture. Okay, fine. So now we are basically done. So we started with the agrarian relations. We are done with the pre-British time period. We are also done with the British time period. Now, what we are going to do is we are heading towards this part post-independence. So post-independence, after getting the independence in the 1947, the first and the primest objective of during that time period rulers, it was that to improve the situation of agriculture sector, and for that they basically organized one committee, and they organized the JC Kumarappan committee. And this JC Kumarappan committee, they basically suggested a fourfold strategy for post independence. And for this post independence strategy, the first thing that they said that they know zamindar mediator, they are the one who are exploiting the peasant, and they are charging exorbitant rent. So that's why the first thing they did is abolish this zamindari. Why? Because now government is not asking the zamindar to pay something. How zamindar is having the right to ask the farmer to pay them? Fine. So therefore there was abolition of zamindari. That was the first thing. Second, they know now we eliminated the zamindar, but now again there are so many farmers who are landless laborer. Landless laborer means what? Who are working on as a labor on a land, but they are not owning the land. Fine. So for them, we need to help them, and we need to protect them from the exorbitant rise of the rent. So therefore, second, like second improvement, that second reform that we are going to have is the tenancy reform. Okay, so now we are done with the tenancy reform also. Now we have solved the major problem. We abolished the zamindar, and we did some tenancy reform to protect them. Now what to do? See, we know already there are zamindar who were having exorbitant limit of the land. They are having 100 acre, 54 acre. So therefore we need to put a ceiling. We need to put a land ceiling, so that one person who's having other than this limit, they are not allowed to hold it, because it was not originally related to them. It was just in terms of a right granted to them, and now by default these person, they are having the ownership of those land. Therefore the thing that we are going to do is, we are putting the land ceiling. Now, next thing, that not to protect, but to avoid the farmers to be dependent upon only one single source of income. See, let us suppose if you are having a very small size of the land, you cannot get the economies of scale. So for that, you have to set up one water pump. You have to you cannot buy the large machinery. So for then you must be dependent upon some traditional machinery or traditional structures to cultivate. We need to avoid that, and we need to take the farmers who were having the disguised unemployment to shift to the other area. So for that, what we did is consolidation of the land holding. So we basically said that A, B, C, they are having 2 hectare or something. So what we are saying is, we are saying A, B, C, you you all three join your land, and one A will get it, B and C will get compensation. Now B and C can get money, and they can do anything else for the same money. Or if not, they can buy the land in different area. That's what we would help the one person to deploy some different things there, like machinery, like irrigation methods, something like that. So the fourth one we are going to do is consolidation of land holding. Okay, so this is what we are going to do in terms of the reform, and I hope you can easily understand. Now let's do all these reform one by one in complete detail, so that you can write it down. Okay, so we are done with this part. We're also done with the land revenue settlement system. We already know the impact. Now what we are going to do is, we are going to remove all these reasons and going to get the benefit. Fine, so now let's start with the first part, the land reforms after independence. See, this was a need of the hour, and the government after the independence, the first step they did is this, and they made the land, the agriculture income tax free. So there would be no such need for the mediator or something. So land reforms after independence. Now let's have the first one. Okay, so the first one was in terms of the abolition of intermediaries, the zamindari system. Of intermediaries. Fine. Okay. So the removal of intermediaries like the zamindars who existed under the zamindari system, it was the first step, because there was like, we are going to achieve a kind of a direct relationship, and this direct relationship, it was established between the government and the farmer. Means we are eliminating, see, what we are going to do is, we are basically saying that there is going to be the government, and there is going to be farmers, basically peasants, and they are going to have a two-way structure. Means two-way communication, the direct relationship. Okay, so they are basically going to have a direct relationship. And this particular thing, what it would basically results in, it would result in the and, like it will put and, put an and on on exploitation of tenant, because now there is no tenant. Why? Because now tenant is the one who's holding the ownership, and now they are having a direct relationship. Again, another thing that what we can analyze here is there is transfer of ownership right, and the ownership right is transferred to the actual cultivator. Ownership right transferred to actual cultivator. Okay, so this is what we can basically notice. Now what was the impact of this? Let's here write down the impact. Okay, so let's write down the impact. Okay, so the first impact, around 2 crore tenant, they got the ownership right. Why? Because we are eliminating the intermediaries. So because of this, they will get the ownership right. So 2 crore tenants get ownership right. Next thing, they basically reduce the landlord dominance. The landlord, they were dominating. So now what we are going to do is we are eliminating their dominance. Now there is no landlord. So it basically reduces landlord dominance. And the next impact, see, all these impact, they are for the benefit only. So the next kind of impact that we can see is the loopholes, it remains the same. Means still some landlord, they will retain the land. I mean, they were holding the papers, and based upon the papers they got the ownership right. So we eliminated the zamindar, there is a direct relationship, but still there are some zamindar who were holding large chunk of the land under them, and they were not cultivating, so they were leasing out their land. So that remained fine. So what we can do is loopholes remained. Okay, so loopholes they remain, and that's what it basically explained. So in the Uttar Pradesh and the Bihar, when they passed this abolition of Zamindari Act, because of this, so many zamindar, they were completely eliminated from their area. Fine. So this is what you can understand from this part. Okay, so now done with this part. Now moving forward to the next part. Second one, tenancy reform. Okay, so the next part is basically the tenancy reform. So tenancy reform, it was here so that we are basically regulating the rent. So when we are regulating the rent, it is basically specifying the rent, it should be like around 30% of the total land revenue. I mean, it should not be more than the 30%. So earlier the rent it was around 35% to 75%. Now the rent it has reduced, and we are saying that it should not be more than one third. Maximum it could be the one fourth, but it should not be more than this. So what we did is, through the tenancy reform, we specified that the rent should be one third to one fourth, and it should not be more than this. Another thing that we specified is there is a security of tenure, means there's a protection from eviction. Now let us suppose you are a farmer, and you basically took one land on lease for 6 months. Now let us suppose you cultivated your crop, and it was 5 months or something, and it's only some days left when you need to harvest your crop. And the day when you were harvesting, the same day, the landowner he will come, and he said that this is my land, and I am revoking the lease paper and lease agreement, and now this complete land with crop belongs to me. Earlier this was the scenario, but now what we are specifying is, we are saying that there is a secure tenure. If the peasant he was taking the land, and he was taking the land for 6 months, it is going towards 6 months, and it will go towards the time period till the time he was not harvesting it. Fine. So this is what you can write down here: security of tenure. I mean, there is no such fear of the eviction. They cannot evict it. Okay? Fine. Now, moving towards the next part is, there was ownership right to tenant in some of the cases. Like in some of the cases, I'm not saying that in all the cases, but let us suppose one farmer he was cultivating the land from the last 10 years, then we are going to grant him the ownership right. So this is, there was such kind of provision. So providing the ownership right in some conditions. In some conditions. Okay, so this is what we basically had. Now what was the impact that we can see here? We can see the impact that it protected the tenant from their exploitation, and it also provided them stability in the farming. Like now you know that if you are doing it, it is going towards the end, and now no one is going to come midway and they will show their ownership. So that's what we can say in terms of impact, that they benefited out of it. Okay, see, this is something like there was Operation Burga. So what kind of example we can basically take here is, there was Operation Burga in the 1978, which recorded the sharecropper, and they gave them some legal rights. Sharecropper, they are the one who's having the right in the crops, like who's having a share out of the crop that is cultivated. Fine. So you can write down here Operation Burga. Now moving towards the next and the third reform that we had is the Land Sealing Act. So the Land Sealing Act, what they basically did is, they fixed a maximum limit on land a person can hold on. Means they mention that if the land is n- of not of good quality, then you can hold on till 54 acre. If it is of good quality, you can hold till 27 acre. So this type of land sealing they specified. So putting excess limit on land, like 27 acre for a good quality, 54 acre for a bad quality land. Fine. Another thing, the surplus, if someone is having a surplus land, so this surplus land would be taken over by the government, and the government will redistribute it. Government will take over the surplus land and will redistribute. Okay, the government will redistribute. Now some land redistributed, and out of this the result, it was modest. Yes, it gave benefit, but there was so many legal cases. Some people, they were having the rebel also, like their land is being taken over, these and that, there were so many cases. But this land sealing act, it did fine. States like Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, they implemented the sealing law, and there we can see a huge success out of it. So that was the kind of example that you can do. Now the fourth example, the fourth part that we can find out here is uh, last one, consolidation of the land holding. See, consolidation, it was also important. Like further in the 1966, when we introduced the green revolution and we mechanized the agriculture sector, so then having a appropriate size of the land is necessary if you wanted to have the if you wanted to achieve the economies of scale. So therefore, consolidation of land, another objective behind this is to uh, to shift the labor from the agriculture toward the industrial sector. Because if all will do or will engage in the agriculture sector, who would be here to provide as a labor in the industries? So because of that, this was also very important. So the fourth one, consolidation of land holding. This is what we did. Okay, so the consolidation of land holding means scattered small plot, they all were going to combine and they will become a single holding. And the reason, only to help to mechanize and to achieve the economies of scale. Fine. So combining scattered small plots are combined together to form a single holding. Fine. And because of this, what kind of benefit we basically achieved? We improved the, because of this, improved the efficiency of farming. And when we achieved the efficiency of farming, it helped in the mechanization of agriculture. Mechanization of agriculture. It basically helped in the mechanization of agriculture, and it also reduces the wastage of the land as well as time. Reduces wastage of land and time. These are the kind of thing that we basically achieved out of the consolidation of the land holding. Fine. Another thing, like these were the four reforms, they were suggested by the JC Kumarappan committee. Out of these four reform, government during that time period also introduced some other measures, other kind of suggestions from the side of the government. So one of the suggestion from their side is cooperative farming. So the cooperative farming means what? The farmers, they are going to pull their land and resources and farm collectively. means 2 to 3 farmers, if they are not able to buy the tractor separately, they all three combinedly join and they will buy one tractor and they will do the farming out of it. So it would help them to do the work faster. And this cooperative farming, it was in nowadays it was also doing great. Another very important thing that we did during the time period, I hope you must have heard the name of Bhudan and Gramdan movement. So they are government, they were voluntarily motivating the other farmers who were having so much of land to come and donate some land for the landless laborer. So that they will basically bhudan, they will donate some piece of land. And gramdan means they were also going to donate some land to the government, like basically to the gram sarpanch or to the gram panchayat for doing some good things for the village. Fine. So this gramdan and the bhudan movement, it was not something provided by the government, it was something which was promoted by the government. Fine. So it was basically encouraged by the Vinoba Bhaveji. So Vinoba Bhaveji, they basically said that there should be a redistribution of land and that should be peaceful. So they were not compelling. See, in the consolidation of land holding, in the land sealing, there was some pressure of the government. But here in the Bhudan and the Gramdan movement, it was voluntary. There was a peaceful redistribution of the land, and it also promote the equality. So those who were willing to help, they were basically being enthusiastic that you should do it. Fine. So this was basic thing that we can find out. Now the question arises, what was the basic impact out of it? So we are going to have two impact. One, that we are going to have the positive impact, and one, we are going to have the negative impact. So here we can see the positive impact, and here we can see the negative impact. Okay, so the positive impact, it basically helped in reducing the federal structure. Like earlier there was so many owner, ek ke baad ek, so now it basically reduced the federal structure. Okay, next thing they basically did is they improved the right of the tenant. Positive thing that we can mention, the rights of tenant. Okay, next that we can see it helped in the redistribution of the land, some redistribution of land. Fine. So this what we can specify as the positive impact. Now what was the negative impact? I mean, not clearly negative impact, but I can reform the word by mentioning it, limitations. Okay, so what was the limitations that we can basically specify here? There was implementation for sure, but the implementation, it was uneven. Like some of the states, I had given you example like Punjab, Haryana, they put the land sealing act there and it worked very phenomenally. But in some of the states, they were not willing to do it. Like in the Bengal, in the Bihar, they were not willingly doing it. So therefore the implementation, it was uneven. So it was also again a challenge, uneven implementation of land act. The second, what you can see is the corruption was so much. The zamindar who were holding the land, they basically forged the accounts. If they are holding 100 acre, in the accounts they showed that they are only having 50 acre. So by giving the bribes or something, they basically use the loophole. So loopholes were there. There was corruption, and there were forced accounting. Okay, another limitation that we can find out here is landless laborer. They were like, even if we consolidate the land holding, still there are so many farmers who were affected from the fragmented agriculture. So the fragmented agriculture. Okay, so this is something that we can relate, basically related to this topic. Fine, so we are done with this topic. In this topic, what we basically did is the land reform, and that's what how you need to do this topic. It was not related to the current affair. Again, I'm saying that the nature of the anthropology is like that, it is static plus dynamic. So land reform, something that they asked us related to the pre-British time period, and the current affair is not touching them. British time period again, and the post independent, this is something that would remain here. Fine. So next, in the next lecture, what we are going to do is we are going to see the agriculture scenario in the present era, so that you will also have some data, so that you will also have some facts. You can mention that what if that we were not introducing these reform, how the picture of the agriculture would work. Fine, so in the next class we are going to do. Okay, I hope for today you have understood it well. I hope you are able to understand it completely. Still, if you are having doubt, you can ask me. There is a Google form attached in the description box. As I have told you, we are launching the Anthropology Foundation batch for the year 2026-2027, and this batch now is going to be in the offline as well as the online live mode. Fine. So, still, if you need any sort of information, you can get it by filling up the Google form. If you want this PDF that I'm writing on the board, I will be sharing this PDF in the Sunya IAS Telegram, official Telegram channel, Sunya IAS Anthropology. So there you can find out the PDF. Fine. So thank you so much for today.